Hi, have you ever gotten through a breakup just to jump into a new relationship and repeat similar patterns or pick similar people over and over again? Sometimes that happens when we're trying to just live, but we're not ever taking any time to learn. So today I'm going to teach you some reflective exercises that you can use. They're super simple. That's going to help you begin to reflect so you can learn something prior to getting into another relationship. This is all found from I Can't Believe How Much This Hurts. It's available on Amazon. Today we're looking at page 25 and the first exercise, which by the way, you could do this just with a notebook, pen and paper, or pencil and paper, or you could go on your computer, on your phone, just somewhere that it is safe, that you can actually get it out of your head. Try not to just think about it. That does not usually have the same impact or effect as writing it down. And as always, if this is overwhelming, just take a break and you can come back to it. But if it's ever too overwhelming, then you can find a local therapist in your area or a support group, right, to help get you support and help you through this difficult time, because breakups can be very, very difficult. Okay, so first one, we're gonna look for some deal breakers or try to help you establish some deal breakers moving forward. So what you can do, from a prior video, we talked about making a list of what was bad. We also looked at what was good, but from your what was bad list, go back and you can check out that video. They're all available on YouTube. You can go back and look at the what was bad video to be able to make your list, but it's just a list of what was bad. And there are some prompts to kind of help recall those to mind. But if you just take a look at what was bad, think on there, what do you never want to experience again? You know, like I never want to put up with that again. I never want to lower myself to ABC again. I never want to go through this again. So really a deal breaker is anything that you're saying, I will not have this in my relationship. So you can look at the what was bad list, or if you can think of some things now, you could write those down. Those then become your deal breakers. So the way to learn from that is when they come up in future relationships, especially early on, when you kind of notice those things, then it can be, hey, you know, I really don't want this in my relationship. How can we work on this? Or what can be different, right? Or if it's enough of a deal breaker, you could just decide I'm done. But if it doesn't change, or the other party's like, yeah, I'm sorry, that's not something I'm interested in changing. Well, if you already know this is one of your deal breakers, it helps you to make decisions to move forward rather than to maybe keep stringing it along, right? And getting damaged in the process. So deal breakers can be really important and really helpful. If you reflect on what was bad, pull your top maybe 1, 2, or 3 things from that list. And then moving forward, you know, I've already been down this road. I did learn my lesson. This is not a road I'm willing to travel. So if that's the road you're on, I'm not going to be able to come with you, right? So think about some of those deal breakers. Okay, the next one is going to be red flags. Sometimes it's hard to identify red flags. It can be difficult. So we say patterns of behavior, you know, something that a person does over and over and over again. Sometimes that's a bit easier to recognize. But a red flag is something that causes your gut to kind of prick your ear, right? So have you ever been in a conversation where somebody said something and you were like, it just kind of jarred you? It was jarring, it was shocking, it was embarrassing, or it made you upset in some sort of way. You felt it, you know, within your gut. Those are usually what the red flags are. But you can actually go back to that same list of the what was bad to be able to look for some of those red flags early on. It could also be found in your timeline. So if you did not watch the video for how to make a timeline, and if you haven't done a timeline, really, truly, a timeline is so powerful. If you're really having a hard time moving on from a person, I cannot recommend enough when you're ready to go and try to do a timeline. And again, just like with anything else, if it's too hard, sorry, I have a pillow I keep sliding off. If it's too hard, then you take a break. If it becomes too overwhelming, then seek help in your area. But for the most part, if you could do a timeline, those are really going to be helpful in identifying those red flags. Those are points where, oh, I did know that. So once you look at some red flags, if you reflect back over your timeline, you're really looking at moments where it was behavior that really stood out to you from the other person's side. Those would become the red flags. And now these are the questions. What were the red flags, right? That's what you're going to reflect on. And then how did you excuse them if you did? Or how did you try to address them if you did? How did you just move on if they were never addressed? What did that look like, right? This is part of the learning experience. You're just reflecting on a past experience and you're asking yourself some questions, right? So it's like, oh yeah, I did see that, but then what did I do? Oh, I brought it up once and I never brought it up again. Or I didn't even bring it up because I was scared of whatever. Or I was too embarrassed, right? Or I was ashamed. So what were some of the red flags? And what were some of the reasons that you dismissed them or were able to ignore them? How did that happen and how did you continue in the relationship if you did? Okay, so far we've talked about what are some of the red flags and also what are some of your deal breakers that you're finding. The last thing we're gonna look at is using your timeline. If you haven't made a timeline, again, watch the video, but look at the very beginning, the middle, and the end. And then you're gonna write down, how did it start? What did it look like at the middle? And what did it look like at the end of the relationship, right? So you're gonna write those 3 things down. And then reflecting over that, you're gonna ask yourself, what was happening and at each stage along the way, and how were you feeling at each stage along the way? And asking yourself some of the questions like, wow, now that I'm reflecting and looking back at these moments, what does this make me think of now, right? And it could be anything. It could just make you really sad because you really miss it and you thought it was all beautiful. Or it could make you ill. You could just have a lot of regret. Or maybe you just feel nothing and you just feel like you just wasted your time. There's no wrong answer, but it's really helpful to just take a moment, reflect back on it. If you're in a space where you're ready to do that and willing to do that. Maybe you're just over the whole thing and you're like, no, I've reflected enough, I'm moving on. That's okay too. You don't have to do any of these things. But if you are struggling and you are trying so hard to move on and you feel like you're about ready to move on, this can be a great exercise to reflect so that you stop just trying to live and then keep on repeating these patterns. And instead of that, you begin to learn so that if you're trying to talk to someone or deciding if you're going to engage in a relationship, or you just started a relationship, right? And you feel that your ear prick, that you stop and pay attention, right? I have seen this road before. What is this person's intentions with it, right? Is this like a one-time trip, or is this where they live? Do they live on this street and I need to bail? Or is this just a conversation that we need to have to clarify some things? Maybe I just want to make my expectations voiced a bit clearer so that I can get a clear understanding of their expectations to see if this is even something that we want to continue, right? Also with the deal breakers, maybe there's things that are not just a red flag, right? That's pricking your ear, but it's a deal breaker where it's like, wow, absolutely not, right? I've only known you for 4 weeks and I've caught you in 16 lies. Like, I'm not doing this, right? Lying to me, deal breaker, especially early on, especially a lot. So those would be examples of a deal breaker. And then just in your reflection of how your last one started, the middle and the end, sometimes that's an indicator of what is to come, right? So if this is how it's starting out, that's how my last one started out. So I just want to be really mindful because I learned my lesson in this regard. I learned a lot, right? So it doesn't mean it will go that way, but you just want to pay attention to see where it's heading. So if you like this information, you can go to relationaltrauma101.podia.com. There you can find a link to the book and also a course. Take good care, and I'll see you in the next one.